Hello there, and welcome to another episode of Star Wars Beyond the Real. I'm Chase, and with me as always, co-piloting this crazy ship is Preston. Preston, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good, all things considered. How are you doing?
Yeah, all things considered.
Yeah.
You surviving the global pandemic?
I am. Yeah, it's made things a lot more complicated in my life, but surviving as best I can.
Oh, good. Well, let's go ahead and get into the episode. This is going to be episode 6, I believe, so let's do this.
Shall we punch it?
Punch it!
Punch it!
Punch it!
Punch it!
All right, so first thing I usually would like to do is do a little bit of catch-up on our lives and our lives pertaining to Star Wars, as well as any housekeeping we might have for the podcast. First thing I want to do is apologize. We've missed the last, 3 weeks now of recording. We kind of were in a good groove, and then this whole thing hit us out of nowhere and kind of changed all of our schedules and our abilities to get together and record. We finally figured out how to do this remotely. Hopefully, we'll see how this one turns out. But I know you've been very busy trying to catch up on your job.
Yeah, for me it was kind of a double whammy. A global pandemic would have been hard enough to continue to keep our cadence of recording, but as I've mentioned on the previous episodes, I also was promoted to a manager of a company that does COVID-19 testing, so it's been a promotion and it's everything. It's been a pretty crazy couple weeks.
Yeah, long days it sounds like for you.
Yeah.
My days have been very short. I've been waking up at like noon, but then I'll go to bed at like 4, so it's mostly nights for me.
See,
this whole thing has thrown off my sleep like crazy.
Yeah, it's thrown me off too, because I used to wake up at like 8 a.m., maybe 8:30, but now my coworkers are all on the East Coast, so I have to wake up and be on a phone call at 7 a.m., and it is the worst. So
yeah.
I'd
well,
switch with you.
At least we can carve out some time to talk about Star Wars and
Yes.
enjoy Star Wars. One thing we've been doing actually a little bit for the past couple of weeks is we've both been playing some Star Wars D&D together.
That's right. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
Been doing that remotely through Facebook chat or whatever it might be. So,
Do you want to tell a little bit about your character? Just a quick little bit.
With the new one?
Yeah.
Oh, I've got a new character now. What is his name? Now it's
Nano.
escaping. Oh, Nano
How do I
Nano
know?
Warwick.
Yeah.
Nano Warwick is his name, but he goes by Nano, and he's a huge hulking Wookiee with kind of grayish white fur, and he's like a gladiator. I have to look at my character sheet. I've forgotten all of his fun little details now.
Yeah. He's got a Trandoshan skull on his shoulder.
Oh, yeah. Well, on the picture I stole
picture,
from Pinterest. Yeah. That's pretty dope. But he's fun because I've been playing with a Chewbacca soundboard that I found online. So anytime I try to speak, I just click a button and do the brrrr, and then one of our droid companions will translate for me as he sees fit, which is hilarious. And you, what was your character that you've made?
His name is Mondus. He is a Kubaz doctor. And
that's right.
Kubaz are typically just like normal human height, but he's a little bit on the short end. He's only 5'3", but he's a lot of fun to play with.
It is pretty short. That's how tall my wife is, and she's tiny.
Yeah, my wife's 5'1".
Yeah, she's 5'1". Really, I didn't really realize she was that short.
Yeah. Well, when we got together before this whole quarantine thing, we were just sitting at a table, so maybe you didn't notice.
Yeah. But another thing that I've been doing is building some Legos.
Mm-hmm.
Now is a good time to do that. So I've got a couple of sets that I've built. One that I made a video for the channel. Another one that I didn't because I just didn't have the motivation. It's hard to be motivated during these times.
Yeah.
There's a lot of... depression might not be the right word. I mean, it's kind of like almost like a seasonal depression where you're inside all day, so you don't want to do anything.
Yeah.
So I need to be working on more videos. Actually, before we're recording this, I did do a tour video of my office, so I'll be posting that on the channel soon.
Oh, cool.
Just kind of showing off some of my collectibles.
You got a ton to show off. You could do a bunch of videos on that.
Yeah. Well, and I was okay. So back to the Lego. I was watching some videos today on the new helmets that we talked about a little bit on our previous podcast. The one you said you've got one coming in the mail for you.
Yeah. So I have it as a gift. Someone pre-ordered it for me, and so it should be shipping to my house. They come out on May 4th, obviously, and it should be here by like May 11th.
Yeah. We'll have to do some sort of build video or something if we can get together, in time.
Yeah, I'm excited.
It's
a Boba Fett Lego helmet, just in case I don't think we've described what it is. Boba Fett Lego helmet. It's about like 6 inches tall, I think, with the stand. So pretty good size.
Yeah. I was watching review videos and unboxing videos today, and I'm so pumped to check those out. I'm really wanting to buy the TIE Fighter pilot version. I think that one looks really cool. So
yeah.
I might save some pennies and buy some of those.
Do it.
But I did buy the Boba Fett Black Series helmet, which people have started to post that they found them in Walmart and stuff. So I've been keeping an eye out when I've been going for groceries, but haven't seen one here in Utah yet. So I went ahead and bought one online. So that's going to be showing up in May.
How much
Super
are those?
Excited about that. It's $120 for that.
Ouch.
So yeah, it's a big one. But I've got all the Black Series helmets, so I've got to keep that going.
Yeah, you're stuck now.
Yeah, and especially with Boba Fett, it's the coolest design
Yeah.
for a helmet in Star Wars. So had to get that one.
Agreed.
So I'm excited for that to show up. Probably do an unboxing video for that on the channel as well. Been doing some hunting out there. Can't find it in person. And then the last thing I kind of want to talk about for me, with the extra time that I've had through this whole crisis, is I started checking out the Forces of Destiny shorts on Disney Plus. Have you ever seen those?
Are those the ones with Leia and like all the female characters?
Right. They were accompanied with the dolls that came out.
Oh, right. Yep.
So it was a line that was made to promote the toys. And I never really checked them out because I was like, well, this isn't for me. This is for little girls, right? Like, that's the target audience. But there's a lot of little fun bits of canon in there. It took me maybe 30 to 40 minutes to watch all of them, the 2 seasons, because they're all short little clips. But if you haven't seen them at home, or you, Preston, if you haven't seen them either, I would recommend checking them out. One little thing I wanted to tell you about in that, you asked a couple weeks ago when you were over here, you were looking at the Bouch or however you want to pronounce it, action figure I had, and we had a small discussion, I think it was off the air, about how she got that costume.
Yeah.
And they actually address it in the Forces of Destiny.
Oh, cool.
They show how she gets it. It's not super in-depth because it's just like, oh, she runs into a bounty hunter and then fights him, and then she's like, oh, I need a costume to get into Jabba's, so she takes its costume from Bouch or whatever the name is, which they don't specify if it's a man or a woman, so I don't know. Could be a male bounty hunter that she took the costume from. So
that's really cool.
Who knows? But yeah, there's a lot of fun little tidbits of information in there. Like you see how Leia gets her dress from the Ewoks and everything, so it's fun. Check it out. But do you have anything you wanted to add about your Star Wars your Star Wars time spent on Star Wars in COVID?
Yeah, I honestly have not had time for anything.
Yeah.
The only thing I wanted to say
right.
was getting older sucks.
Yeah.
I don't know if I broke my wrist or if I've just sprained it. I don't know, but my wrist has been killing me.
Yeah, I noticed the cast you've got on there.
It's just a wrap, but I think it started as what's it called when you're typing and stuff and you get carpal tunnel. Yeah, I think it started as that, but I heard a pop today, and I'm a little bit worried about it. But I can't go to the doctor because they're not really admitting people that are not urgent.
Yeah.
So just a little bit of like, oh, great, my body's starting to break down. A little reality check.
You're turning into Luke on Octo.
Yeah.
Sitting around decaying.
I'm telling you got a couple more years. Once you hit 30, that's the end of it.
I know. I've got a few more, and then I'm over. Let's go ahead and break into the news. First story we've got here on the list is Stellan Skarsgård and Kyle Soller, I think that's how that's said, have been cast in the untitled Cassian Andor's Disney Plus series, which to me, I mean, that's not a huge story for me. We were going to be getting casting, those are, at least I know Skarsgård is a great actor. So, I mean, they could play any role. But what I wanted to talk about kind of with this story is how you think this pandemic has affected the production of Cassian Andor, and when do you think we're actually going to end up getting it?
Yeah. Well, and then I have a follow-up question is, what do you think that this movie is even about? Because I keep hearing about this movie, but I'm not sure what it is.
Or the series?
Yeah, the series. But yeah, first off, I've heard a lot of productions have been postponed. So everything's been pushed back like 3 months from its initial release date. So I'm sure that this one is the same, unless they've wrapped. And they can do like some post-production.
I don't think they've even started production especially if they're still casting.
Oh, that's true.
And so I feel like we're not going to see this until, I don't know, maybe 2022, even further.
Will people remember who Cassian Andor is by that point?
Hopefully. Well, and that's when they're saying the next movie is coming out is in 2022. I don't know if that's been pushed or not. But
what's the next movie going to be?
I feel like we don't know what it's going to be. They just said that it's going to come out in 2022. And then the next one is 24 and then 26. So they're doing another trilogy release, I guess. But is it going to be kind of like it was in 2019 where everything's going to be kind of shoved together? You're going to get a series, you're going to get a movie, you're going to get maybe more comic books or whatever books coming out all at the same time, or we're going to have another dry spell.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of what I'm seeing as the future. Well, and then we don't know if Cassian is going to come out before or after Kenobi.
Right.
Sounds like the Kenobi might not come out for a long time, which is very sad.
It feels a little bit like the High Republic stuff is going to be our bridge, that they're going to use that to keep us going while there's a dry spell of movies and film.
Which is great if you are into the comics and the books, which I try to be as much as possible. But for many people who only take in the visual media, or not the visual media, but the movies and the television series, they're gonna have quite a bit of a dry spell.
Yeah, that's true.
But in other related news, this actually just broke, I think, about an hour ago. I saw on Twitter that they have gone ahead with development of season 3 of The Mandalorian. So they're putting a lot of confidence in the show. I think they've already wrapped production on season 2, but they're already starting the development process and the pre-production for season 3.
Mm-hmm.
So
cool.
That's exciting.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that, because the first season was awesome. I had some little nitpicky things that I didn't like about it, but for the whole, it was amazing.
I think as a whole, there's not a lot of people out there that dislike it. So I think Disney is trying to put a lot of eggs in that basket, which is a good thing, as long as they keep it relevant and they keep it, good.
Yeah. I think they're realizing that we really like that people respond to character-driven narratives.
Yeah. Well, and they've got a good crew over there making that show. As we'll talk about today, as our main topic here is the Clone Wars episode that came out this past Friday. Dave Filoni, man, he's just rocking it right now. So
Dave Filoni is only second to George Lucas.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. I think they did a good thing and let him be a part of Mandalorian. In relation to the Mandalorian, another story we have here is Ming-Na Wen will be returning as Fennec Shand for season 2 of The Mandalorian. Now, this is more of a rumor than an actual news story, but this is something that people have talked about already, but it'd be interesting to see her come back. I think she was a very interesting character that was very short-lived, so hopefully she does come back in some sort of capacity.
I'm quickly looking up who that is. I forgot.
Oh, she's the girl in the 5th episode, the bounty hunter.
Oh, yeah. She's dead, though. I thought she died.
Yeah, they made it seem like she died, but you don't actually see her die.
Oh, that's right.
And then that character comes up to her in the end with the spurs, or that spur sound. the one that a lot of people thought was Boba Fett.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully they expand on that a little bit.
Yeah.
There's a lot of crazy stuff that could be happening in season 2 with the rumor of Ahsoka. There's a potential for Boba Fett, and then Fennec Shand coming back. So I liked her character a lot. I'm hoping she does return.
Yeah, she has a lot of potential.
Yeah. Next story here is they announced a new Lego coming out for $200. It's another one of those pricey ones. It's part of this Ultimate Collector series, which is those pricier ones, but they're so good looking.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the A-Wing model.
Yeah.
So
Which
I know you're a big fan of the A-Wing.
Yeah, that's my favorite ship. Yeah, it looks pretty cool. It's fairly good size too. I don't know if I were to get it, I don't even think I have space to display that thing.
Yeah, it's roughly scaled to the minifig. They did that with the Slave One Ultimate Collectors as well, and that's about scale size, and that thing's huge.
Yeah, the Slave One's a lot bigger than an A-Wing.
Yeah, I saw a video of that today, and I really want it.
Now we just need a Death Star scaled to the minifig.
Yeah, we need to start getting a bunch of listeners and get a bunch of ads going. Yeah, sorry guys, but we need to buy more Legos. So if we can get some sponsorship going on, get some Legos, or maybe get some free Legos someday. I don't know.
This whole ploy has just been to become like a review channel for Lego, so they start sending us free stuff.
I'm gonna start doing that though. Seriously, like I'm gonna try to convince my wife, oh, you gotta let me buy this Lego so I can make a video for it, and then it's an investment. And then just make a bunch of Lego videos.
If we go 50-50 on it, I'll let you have it on the weekends, but I display it on the
there
weekdays.
We go. Yeah. It'll be like a kid from a divorced family. It'll just every other weekend go back.
I'll text you on like Saturday afternoon. Okay, I'm coming over to drop him off. Don't feed it a bunch of candy like you did last week.
Keep it in a dust-proof case.
Yeah.
Let's see what's the other bit of news here. Oh, the Pod Racer game coming out. I had heard rumor of this before, that the Pod Racer game was coming out on Switch. And so I've been checking on Switch like every couple of days to see if it's on there, because I need things to do during quarantine. But I've got this story, and I realized that I was way off base on when it's coming out. It's not coming out till May 12th. So
it's still not too far
I
away.
won't be playing it till then. No, but we might be back to work by then. Who knows?
Hopefully we're back to normal by then.
Yeah, hopefully.
I need to get a Switch now.
Oh, you don't have a Switch?
No.
Oh, yeah, it's it might be on Wii as well. I can't remember. I think it's other platforms for Nintendo.
Okay, I do have a Wii.
Maybe it's what was the one that was before it? Is it the
a Wii U?
Wii U, maybe it's that. Let me click on the story and find out. No, it just says Switch right here.
Okay. The graphics are pretty old. It looks so dated.
The graphics are super old. I'm still going to download it because I loved this game as a kid. I used to play it on my Mac, actually, when it first came out. But, yeah, it's a fun game.
I have a hard time.
Played.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No.
I was going to say, talking about the graphics, I've been playing a lot of Red Dead Redemption 2. I replayed through it, and I was like, man, this game's incredible. So I was like, okay, I got to play the first one again to like continue the story. And I put it in and tried playing it, and it's so bad. Like after playing the second one, I was like, I can't even see anything. Like it just looks so digitized and crappy.
That's funny because I actually played Red Dead Redemption, the first one, for the first time late last year, and it was amazing. Even compared to other games, I loved it, and I thought it looked really good. It was dated, sure, but I thought it was really fantastic. So now I really need to get the second one.
Yeah, the second one's my favorite video game of all time. It's incredible. You'll have to check that out. And maybe it's just because I'm playing it on an Xbox One and with the old disc, so maybe it kind of ruins the...
Yeah, I was doing it on an Xbox... no, it's the new Xbox One. With
it was the Xbox
but it was a
One?
download, so maybe they had like upscaled it.
It could have been, yeah.
Yeah, I have a hard time going back to these old games, just because I've like Serious Sam came out on Stadia. I don't know if you remember what Stadia is. So I got it for free, and I played the crap out of that game when I was a kid. And I try to play it again now, and I'm like, this is boring. This isn't nearly as fun as I thought it was.
Yeah. Yeah, some of those games don't age as well as others do.
Yeah.
Last story here is that we got a first look on StarWars.com at the Clone Wars Stories of the Light and Dark, which is an anthology book that's coming out. That's just going to be a little bit of snippets from the Clone Wars.
Yeah, I saw that. So, but I wasn't sure. Is it just like written episodes, like basically like a novelization of the episode?
Stories from the episodes that are written as short story forms.
Okay.
From what I gathered, artwork in it looks really cool. That's probably the only reason I would end up buying that.
Yeah.
Is for the artwork. But if you have kids, which you do, it might be a fun way to, introduce them into some light reading.
Yeah.
I don't know what grade level it's at, but
I'm sure it's like middle school at least.
Fun thing for 'em. Probably, actually, yeah. How old is your oldest again?
6.
6?
It's going into first grade.
Okay.
If school
Dang.
ever comes back in session.
Yeah. Did you guys do the homeschool thing?
Yeah, they've been doing
the
the virtual like Zoom calls with his class. It's a nightmare. We tried to
online kindergarten.
Online kindergarten is the worst thing ever.
Well, that's something I'm actually. This is going to sound terrible, but I'm really glad I don't have kids right now during this pandemic thing. So.
Well, and we used to just take them out, like, hey, let's go over to Target, and we'd just walk around just to get them out of the house, and we can't do that anymore. So we've been
an excuse for you to look at Star Wars figures.
Exactly. Yep. So we've just been like wandering around the block every afternoon. It's been rough.
I have noticed that here as well. Like if I go outside to get my mail, or I'll go grab a taco from Taco Bell or something, there is way more people out on the sidewalk than I've ever seen living in this neighborhood for the last 3 years that I've been here. Because people are just out riding their bikes, walking around because they're so sick of staying inside.
I feel like it'd be this way no matter, even if there wasn't a pandemic, because it's spring and people are like coming out of their hibernation.
Yeah,
but maybe not to this extent.
Here it's more than usual. Yeah.
I will say, I lived in South America for a couple of years, and the thing I miss is that everyone in the evenings would just like sit in their yard in lawn chairs, and that was just how you spend your evening. Sometimes they'd get together and like sing songs, and someone would play a guitar. We don't have that here in the States, and it's kind of sad.
No, some places do, but yeah, not here in Utah. No one, no one hangs out in the front porch here.
Definitely not.
Well, let's go ahead and break into our story, which is also our Clone Wars review.
Yeah.
Sadly, well, actually, here's what we'll do. Because we've missed the last couple of weeks podcasting, I do want to go over really quickly the, is it Torres? Is that their last name?
Martez.
Is it Torres sisters? Martez, you're right. The Martez sisters arc with Ahsoka. Let's go over that really quickly, just that arc together, and then we'll get into the awesome new episode that everyone's talking about from this last Friday.
Okay.
So what were your thoughts? Do you have anything that kind of jumped to the mind? I know we talked about Gone with a Trace, which we got really into trying to figure out why it was named that way. And neither one of us realized that the character's name was Trace.
Well, I remember it was really funny in that episode of our podcast because we're like, oh, it's Rafa, and I don't remember her name. And we kept mentioning how we forgot her name.
Danced around it a bunch, yeah.
And then I went and rewatched it, and I was like, oh, her name is Trace. I forgot.
Her name is Trace. And it's funny is because when I watched the next couple episodes, I didn't even realize that we had done that until you texted me and was like, oh, it is Trace. That's right. So, but yeah, did you like these episodes where they go to a spoiler warning? Just everybody, if you're listening and you haven't watched into new series or new season of Clone Wars, we are going to get into heavy spoiler territory from here till the end of the podcast. So if you haven't watched them, you might want to stop listening now. But for those of you who have watched it, let's talk about that the arc on Kessel. What did you think about that?
Yeah, well, it started on Kessel, and then it was on Obadiah? No.
Obadiah,
yeah.
I believe, yeah. Which I always remember because I work in the suit business, selling suits, and I had a customer one time come in whose name, if you're listening, thank you for having the coolest name in the world, but Obadiah McGargle.
McGargle?
Legit name of a person that I helped. Obadiah McGargle.
Interesting.
So shout out to you, Mr. McGargle. Thank you for having the coolest name and supplying me with joy every time I say it. Obadiah McGargle. All right. Anyways, what you were saying about Obadiah the Planet.
Yeah. It was good to see the Pike Syndicate. That was pretty cool. They're not a huge crime family, but they're an interesting one, I think. So it was cool to see them. But overall, I felt like the Martez arc didn't accomplish a bunch, but it was a good segue to show like what happened to Ahsoka immediately after she walked away from Anakin at the Jedi Temple, and a good wake-up call for her to see that other people don't view the Jedi in the same light that she has.
I think that was the strongest part.
Yeah,
is learning about how other people view the Jedi. My only complaint with that arc is I feel like it was 4 episodes that could have been 2.
Yep.
Because it's kind of transitioning from where Ahsoka was to where Ahsoka needs to be for the Siege of Mandalore. And I think we spent a lot of time on that little heist that we didn't necessarily need to see.
That whole episode, okay, that's my biggest gripe, is that whole episode where it starts that they're in prison, and then it ends with them in prison.
With them in prison.
And nothing happens. Like, they get out, they run around, you see some Mandalorians, and then they're back in prison. I'm like, just cut that whole episode out.
Exactly.
Have that little
there was
conversation.
Some decent, like...
There's that one conversation where the Martez sisters reveal that their parents were basically killed during a Jedi heist or like a Jedi pursuit. And that
which was, I think, was Holocron heist, wasn't it?
Was it?
With Cad Bane.
Oh, I didn't realize that. But yeah, so they could have just had that little conversation in another episode and cut everything else out. That was all that they needed.
I agree. The character building was the only redeeming quality of that episode. Otherwise, it really didn't need to be there. Because, you don't want to start in the same or end in the same place you started. Like, to me, that doesn't make a lot of sense. But one thing that I found interesting in that arc was you did get to see the other side of Kessel, which was really cool.
Yeah.
You saw like a beautiful, lush area where the higher ups, if you will, the wealthy people got to live. I thought that was cool. And then it raised a couple of questions for me about what is going on in the criminal world, because when they're having that conversation with Darth Maul in the hologram, he refers to he doesn't refer to the Shadow Collective, because the Shadow Collective has been disbanded now, but he's still working with the Pikes.
The Pikes refer to the Collective.
To Crimson Dawn.
Yeah.
What was that?
The Pikes. He refers to Crimson Dawn. He says, "Well, if you can't fulfill this requirement, then maybe the Crimson Dawn will happily step in and take over for you." And then one of the little Lieutenant Pike, the second in command, he says, he's trying to turn the Collective against itself. And then the main guy's like, that's a decent strategy when you're working with a bunch of criminals. And so I was a little bit confused. I'm like, what are you talking about here?
Yeah, it's almost as if Maul, and I think they explain this a little bit in the comics, but it's almost as if Maul has left the Shadow Collective, because he does get captured by Palpatine after the 5th season of Clone Wars. But then somehow he creates this, as we know, as the Crimson Dawn from Solo. So I'm interested to see how they kind of explain that. Maybe they will in these later episodes. But one thing I do want to talk about real quick is I thought it was really funny how he's there as a hologram, and he senses Ahsoka and the Force, like from across the galaxy, which is interesting. And then he like turns and like looks down at, down the shaft or whatever, or across the railing. I was like, I didn't think holograms worked that way.
Yeah.
Like, I thought he would just see the other person he's talking to as a hologram as well, right? Like there's some sort of projector or camera or something that's grabbing it. So it's like, how would you be able to look over a railing as a hologram?
Yeah, because whatever the Pike guy, whatever he was holding in his hand is the only device. So like the camera would have to be in there. So just because the hologram is looking down, like the camera isn't in the eyes of the hologram. So by him looking down, he's not seeing anything more.
Exactly. It was very weird. Like when you see, for example, Obi-Wan is sending a message to Anakin on Tatooine in episode 2, and he has R4. He's like, okay, record this message, R4, and R4 looks over at him. It's like you assume R4 is recording him, through his lens or whatever, and then transmitting that, and then it's coming up as a hologram to Anakin. So it was really odd to me. It's a nitpick, but I was just like one of those little, nerdy moments where I was like, that doesn't make any sense.
No, yeah, I had the exact same thought that I'm like, how is he sensing? I had the same thought of how is he sensing through the hologram, because he's not physically there.
Right.
Why does a hologram enhance his force sense?
Like you could sense somebody across the galaxy to a degree, like when Alderaan is destroyed, Obi-Wan senses it. But that's
billions.
A mass murder, right? Billions of people cry out. But if you could just like sense someone from across the galaxy that way, you would find anybody you wanted,
Yeah.
You're like, oh, where's Maul? Oh, I sense him. He's on Mandalore.
Yeah, exactly.
But let's talk about it. Let's talk about Maul on Mandalore with Episode 9, Friends Not Forgotten. I have a lot of things to talk about here, so this might go a little bit longer than expected. We're already about 30 minutes in. First thing I want to talk about, first thing you see is the old school Lucas film production logo that comes up. What did you feel when you saw that?
So maybe I just don't understand what it is, because it stayed on the screen for quite a while. I don't know why it was on there for so long, but my wife and I are looking at that and we're like, that's the old version. And not only was it the old version, but they also made it look old. So it had like fuzzy edges and looked like it was recorded off of like a VHS or something. So I don't know what to think of it. I just noticed that it was old.
Yeah, I love it. To me, it gave me chills because it's, that nostalgic. It's something that we don't see very often, even on the, DVDs and stuff for the original movies. I think they've changed over to the new logo when they did the remasters, all the different remasters that they've done. But to me, this is a testament of Dave Filoni is just such a fan of Star Wars, and he gets it, and he's there with all of us because he was like, okay, I'm going to put in this little Easter egg at the beginning, and I'm going to give everybody chills because I know that even seeing this font is going to, spawn conversation aside. So we start out with that. And then this is the first episode first Clone Wars that we've seen the use of the Star Wars theme. We don't even get the Star Wars theme played in the Clone Wars movie. It's always been the Kevin Kiner one, and now they're doing the original George Lucas as well. So what did you think about that?
Yeah, I thought that was interesting. And this kind of goes back to some comments I saw online even before I watched the episode, is people were asking or just talking about the fact that this arc could be a standalone movie and that they should release it in theaters, that the Siege of Mandalore should be a standalone thing.
It should have been, and it's almost set up that way because it does say part 1.
Yeah.
Instead of having, there's no fortune cookie in this, right? What I call fortune cookie, other people do as well, but where it says, the friendship is the path to whatever, whatever it might be. There was none of that. It just said part 1 on it, and it had the red logo,
and it did go into the typical like betrayal, the typical Clone Wars stuff, but
the voiceover, which I'm glad they did. We'll talk about that in a second. But red logo, I think we've only seen on Darth Maul episodes, so I think that's kind of a cool little motif they've done there. And I believe we got a red logo in Return of the Jedi, at least on the marketing campaign. Not obviously it didn't have a logo at the beginning of the movie. It was just said Star Wars. But so yeah, part 1, no fortune cookie. And then as we get into that little opener, there's a lot to unpack just in that first like 10 or 15 seconds there. First one I want to talk about is the shot of General Grievous we get. In my opinion, is the most beautiful shot we've ever gotten of General Grievous. Like, better than anything in Clone Wars, better than anything in Revenge of the Sith, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Like, the animation on that was just so good looking.
Did
you notice that
I
as well?
did. Well, it's because I saw a lot of comparisons. They were comparing that shot versus a shot from season 1 of Grievous, and how far it's come from through the years.
the animation in general just has gotten so great on this season. And then we see Caleb Doom, or Kanan,
Yep.
for a brief second. And I'm glad you caught that right away. You texted me when you saw that at that little holo cancel.
Yep.
Because I didn't notice it the first time watching.
Really?
Yeah, I maybe I was just too into what he was saying or what was going on, and I didn't catch it. And I saw it later on Instagram, and I was like, "What? I didn't even notice."
Yeah. So the reason that I noticed is because, one, I'm a huge Rebels fan, and I've read the comic books, and so I've read the whole Caleb Dune arc. Have you read that arc?
I haven't.
Yeah.
I need to.
I think that's why. So I saw Bialba, and I was like, "Wait a second, that's Bialba with a kid. Wait a second, that's Kanan." And yeah, I put it all together pretty quickly, and I text you while I was still watching the show.
I'm still about halfway through. Is it New Dawn, the book with Kanan?
I haven't read that.
Talks about Caleb Dune as a kid.
I do need to read
I
that.
think that came out before Rebels.
Yeah, I read the comic book.
Finish that. Yeah, I need to. So many comics I need to catch up.
This one's really good, and I think I own them. I'll have to check, and I can let you borrow them. But I think they're fantastic because it's really similar to Ahsoka in a way, but also very different because Ahsoka left on her own will, whereas Kanan was kind of like thrust out because his master's now dead. There's Order 66, and he's like, "What am I gonna do?" And so he like latches on to some pretty surly. Not bounty hunters, but like traders and stuff, and he kind of gets mixed up into that. And it's interesting to see a wayward Padawan after Order 66. Really interesting.
I mean, in a way, he's running from the law, right?
Yeah.
He's running from the Empire. So
He went from being
it would
like
make sense for him to fall into outlaws.
Yeah, exactly. He went from being like an up and coming peacekeeper to an outlaw, and he struggled with that.
Well, speaking of Order 66, in this intro, we also then see how all the Jedi from the Council and the other Jedi we know from the movies are all dispatched to pretty much their graveyards, to their areas where they're going to die in Order 66. So
yeah, we see.
I thought that
what's her name? The Jedi that gets shot down in oh gosh, I'm blanking on all the names. Felucia,
Ayla Secura.
Yeah, we see her there. It's like, no, we know what's going to happen.
With Commander Bly behind her, and you're like, oh man, this is all hitting at the heartstrings. So we're butting up right against episode 3 here. Let's see. The next thing we see, okay, so the bridge scene at the very beginning there. Great scene. First thing I thought when I saw it was Golden Gate Bridge.
Yeah, I'm glad you wrote that down because that's the exact same thought that I had.
Yeah, it looks just like the Golden Gate Bridge, which I'm sure is a nod to Lucasfilm being out of San Francisco. If that wasn't intentional, then that would surprise me. Next thing I have written down here is Obi-Wan saves Cody, which, again...
how does he save Cody?
It's just... I'm trying to remember now. It's been like 2 days now since I watched it.
Yeah, I don't remember him saving him. Is it like right before Anakin walks up?
Yeah, it's before that.
Okay.
It's when he like pulls him with the Force or something, and then they get behind that little barrier before Anakin comes in. And the reason I wrote that down is because Cody tries to kill Obi-Wan like days later, so it's kind of sad there. Let's see what's next on here. That opening scene on the bridge to me was very reminiscent of the Clone Wars movie. I don't know if you've seen the Clone Wars movie.
I have. It's been a long time, yeah.
Yeah. But there's very similar shots and styles of battle between just like big waves of droids and a bunch of clones. So to me, it reminded me a lot of the first battles we've seen in the Clone Wars, which is kind of nice because it's like, this is where it started. It's kind of ending in a similar place.
I will say that on the bridge, I really liked that we've seen Anakin come into his own as not just as like a cocky Jedi, but also as a general, and how he commands the 501st is very different than the way that Obi-Wan commands his battalion. They're like hiding under the bridge with jetpacks, whereas Obi-Wan... my wife and I were having this discussion. My favorite Jedi is Qui-Gon Jinn because he's super into the Force. Anakin's super cool because he's very flexible and innovative. But then there's her favorite is Obi-Wan, and he's obviously super cool, but he's very he's very rigid and is not
poster
creative.
child for the Jedi.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
follow the rules. Yeah.
Yeah, he just follows the rules, and so like they're over there. We're just gonna push our way down this bridge, and he can't think outside that box, and that goes for how he is with the Force and with a lot of things. He can't think outside the box.
If you think about it, we discussed Qui-Gon a lot on this show, which is great because he's one of the most fascinating characters out there. Is how Qui-Gon is kind of the bridge between Anakin and Obi-Wan. He kind of takes a little bit from both of that, where Anakin is viewed as reckless, and, you know, he worries a lot about his friends, but he's also very selfish in a way. He doesn't think of big picture, where Obi-Wan thinks very big picture, does whatever the council says, is kind of a company man, a yes man, where Qui-Gon, I think, kind of emulates both sides of that in a way, and is kind of in between.
Yeah, so. And I love that they took those character attributes and they show, like, you can see those character attributes in the way that they command their armies, and later on how they deal with Ahsoka and her request for help with Mandalore, where Obi-Wan's
Absolutely.
like, no, we've been commanded to go to Coruscant, we have to go, and Anakin's like, well, what if I let the 501st, what if I go with her with my 501st? And he says, well, she's not, no, what if I send the 501st with her? Well, she's not a part of the Grand Army of the Republic. And like, there's all these rules, but Anakin like keeps circumventing them with creative ways. Like, well, what if I split the 501st? I make Cody a commander, and now she's just an advisor. And so all throughout,
and they're totally willing to do that. I think that's what's interesting to me, is to see the relationship between the clone commanders and the generals. Is you look at Cody's unit and the way they interact with Obi-Wan, it is very much a professional, a military. There's respect there, but like, I respect you as a military authority, where Rex is more like, we're friends. I respect you, but I respect you as a person, and I respect your craziness, but I've followed you for so long that I'll follow you anywhere, and I'll go off with Ahsoka to fight this technically not a threat to the Republic, instead of going off and doing my duty as a clone to save the Chancellor, which is very interesting, which is, you know, part of the reason why Cody ends up trying to kill Obi-Wan, and Rex doesn't. Rex isn't there to try to kill Anakin. I mean, not that anyone tried to kill Anakin, because he turned to Darth Vader. And of course the inhibitor chip plays into that as well. But I just think that's kind of interesting theme to look at. So yeah, there's a lot to discuss about their relationships. They do a lot of character building in the show, which is great.
Quick little side tangent. The inhibitor chips, when that first came up in Clone Wars, I was like, oh, come on, this is like the midichlorian for the clones. I didn't like the science-y explanation of why they followed Order 66, but as I've come to like Cody and Rex and all the clones, I'm actually really glad that there's a reason, and it's not just like, because there's no way that you could believe that Cody would just try to turn on Obi-Wan, or any of these clones would try and turn on their commanders.
And I think that's why they did it, because I was the same way a little bit. Like, do we need the inhibitor chip? Like, come on. But yes, if you to look at this in a real world sense, like, if you spent a bunch of time on the front lines for several years with these people, and your higher up said, okay, now you have to kill this person that you've been, you know, fighting alongside for 2 years now, you wouldn't go, okay, got it, sir, turn around, shoot him. You would be like, wait, what? Why? Like, tell me what's going on. Like, I need to know. So yeah, it makes a lot of sense there. With Anakin going on that bridge, though, that scene, did you notice the music from Return of the Jedi?
I did not.
So it's the same music they use when they're on the sand skiff, where it's like that bump, 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 you know, that kind of like subtle, or not subtle, but that sudden tones, I guess. I just thought that was really cool. There was a lot of George Williams. Wow. George Williams, everybody. John Williams. George Lucas mixed up there. A lot of John Williams music riddled throughout this entire episode, which was interesting because you don't get any of that in the other Clone Wars. So
yeah, this one very much felt like you said, we're butting up against episode 3 here, and so it's transitioning from Clone Wars to a full-blown episode of Star Wars. Yeah.
Yeah, it feels more like a Star Wars movie. Like you were saying, they could have released these in theater. And it feels more like a Star Wars movie than the Clone Wars movie did, in my opinion. So, let's see. Okay, I just got to say the tactical droid, and this has been the case for the whole time, but I just now realize that their chest looks like a skull.
Huh.
It looks kind of like a Punisher skull, and I think it looks awesome.
I'm going to have to rewatch and look out for that, and the music.
Yeah, they're pretty cool. Yeah, a lot of original Williams music. And then after that battle,
can I ask this as a question?
Yes.
So I had this as a question, and I was going to ask you. So they bring up Fulcrum. They say, "Hey, Fulcrum's called," and Anakin's response is, "Oh, Saw Gerrera," and I don't fully understand why he put that together.
So it's said that they used, it's hard to catch because it's like one word, but he says that they used your call sign for Fulcrum is like how they word it. So they're using Anakin's like personal line or whatever, his personal like transmission code.
So Anakin's transmission code was Fulcrum?
So that's what I'm not sure. So the way I kind of see it in my head canon is that Anakin gave Saw like his direct contact, right?
Oh.
Basically, is like, you can DM me anytime if there's an issue on Onderon. Use the code name Fulcrum. And so when he hears Fulcrum, he thinks, oh, it's Saw Gerrera. But he might have given access to that to Ahsoka as well. And Ahsoka was like, okay, I'll just use the code name Fulcrum because he'll know it's important or whatever.
Yeah.
And then she adopts that Fulcrum name, which becomes the name of a lot of different agents in the rebellion, like Callus as well. That's kind of how I see it, but they don't necessarily explain that perfectly. So Saw Gerrera could have been a Fulcrum agent in the rebellion at one point too. We don't know.
Yeah, definitely.
Let's see. I'm losing all my notes here.
You have written here.
Oh, one thing I noticed. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to read the next one.
Yeah. One thing I noticed my second time watching it is that Ahsoka is wearing Mandalorian clothing.
I did not notice that, so I'm interested. What, like, armor?
Yeah. If you look up like a picture of her in the last episode, it's not armor, but it's like this tunic thing that has that little diamond in the center of it. That you see all over Mandalore and on Mandalorian armor and everything. So I thought that was interesting. She was like in those kind of like mechanic scrubs when she was hanging out with the mechanic sisters, and then now she's hanging out with Bo-Katan and Ursa Wren. She's wearing the Mandalorian tunic.
I'm gonna have to rewatch and look out for that one too.
Really cool on her. Oh, and then when we see Ahsoka coming off of the Mandalorian ship when they go into the hangar, they play the Force theme behind her, which I thought was, again, that gave me chills, because anytime you want somebody to feel something, just play that Force music behind a character you care about, and you'll instantly get that.
I'm gonna have to listen to the music more carefully. I guess I don't pay attention to it that much.
I didn't the first time. Is the second time really that I was like hearing them, and the first time I'm just so like caught up in everything that's happening that I don't soak in every detail until my second or third watch. But and then there was a line delivered later on, said loyalty means everything to the clones, which I think Anakin says that, and that again is going back to the saving Commander Cody man. Loyalty means everything to the Cones until 2 days from now when we kill you all.
Yeah.
Oh, so sad.
It is weird. I must say, like, it's such a weird moment in time because you see these characters that you care about walking through this hangar of clones, and the clone armor is getting closer and closer to just regular stormtrooper armor. Like, it doesn't have the fin. It's definitely like phase 2
Right.
clone troopers. And so you're starting to get that sense of these are almost stormtroopers. And then you see the almost the Imperial emblem blazoned everywhere, and you're like, oh, this is so weird to be like rooting for Anakin and the clones when you know that they're really...
It didn't happen overnight.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the ingenious of Palpatine as he slowly descends to the Empire. But let's
this
see.
next one, I had another question about this. So she gets her...
yeah, I do too.
Anakin gives her lightsabers, which are super cool, by the way, having like the one shorter than the other. And when she ignites them, they're blue and not white, and I was really surprised by that.
So one thing I noticed is these aren't the same lightsabers she has in Rebels.
Oh.
The hilts are completely different. These are the lightsabers that she has in Clone Wars, which I'm wondering if she's going to lose these somehow before the series ends.
Maybe her hands will be cut off.
But she had green ones before.
Maybe her hands will be cut off.
Her hands will get cut off?
And she'll drop them down a shaft.
Probably. And then some little 200-year-old lady will find it 30 years later and give it to
exactly
her granddaughter.
I'm Ray Tano.
Give it to they'll give it to Grievous's granddaughter.
There you go.
What
hold
was
on.
I going to say? Oh yeah, so
hold on, real quick, a tangent.
Yes.
Online, there's this running joke. Like, I think I mentioned it. Grievous with a bunch of lightsabers and a bunch of arms was kind of a joke for a while, and they were adding more and more lightsabers to him. The new joke online that I've seen is they'll take video clips of like lightsabers being lost, and Grievous will just like scurry across the screen to grab it.
Yeah, I saw that one
So
where Kylo throws or is it Rey? I can't remember. Throws the lightsaber into the ocean in the Rise of Skywalker, and he like jumps into the water after it.
It's so funny. I love
him. But yeah, her lightsabers are blue in this one rather than green, which I think they did that to be like, oh, he's giving a piece of himself to her, if that makes sense. Okay. But it's also a little weird because it's like they make it seem like, okay, you have to go find your crystal yourself. In order for your crystal to obey you through the Force or whatever, you have to find it on Ilum and it has to call to you. But now it's like, oh, I exchanged your crystals out for some blue ones that you maybe not.
They changed it. So so that's
I mean?
the old ways that they used to have to go to like the crystal caverns and find their crystal, and that was their color. But the new canon is that you basically just get any crystal. You can take any crystal you want, and then you meditate with it and kind of put something of yourself into that crystal. And so because in the old canon, I don't even know if it was technically canon, but in Legends, the Sith were basically not allowed to go to that Kyber crystal planet, and so they synthesized them, and that's why they're red. But in the new canon, you actually make it bleed. You take just a regular crystal, make it bleed, and that's why it's red. So they've totally switched up how that works. But
it's kind of a little bit of both still, because you still have that Clone Wars episode, which is canon, about them going to Ilum and taking their crystal. Right. But you are right about that bleeding thing. The opposite of that is how Ahsoka got her white blades, because Ahsoka actually took 2 red crystals from an Inquisitor and reverse bled them, if you will. She purified them, which turned them white. And I think the reason they turn white is because of her like neutrality in the Force or whatever. So yeah, I thought that was interesting. So that's obviously not the lightsaber she has for this episode, because that wouldn't make sense if she took them from an Inquisitor. But I'm interested to see what happens to these lightsabers. They might talk about it in the Ahsoka book. It's been a while since I read the first half of that, and I never finished the last half.
I need to finish it because she keeps bringing up like this little collection of mechanical parts, and they haven't really explained what it is, but at one point she started to make them hover and come together, like she could see how they're going to come together. But then she stopped herself, and I think she's going to build her lightsabers at that point. So I need to finish the book. I'll do it this week. I promise. And well, I think that's where she gets them.
Well, the next little bit here talks about Ursa Wren and how we see her, and that's just kind of a fun little cameo or Easter egg for Star Wars Rebels.
Who's Ursa Wren? Oh, yes,
Sabine's
we do.
mom.
Yeah, because she's got like the colored hair.
And she's got the Night Owl, which is where she gets that look for her Mandalorian armor in Rebels.
Yep, I did notice her.
Now, Sabine, the whole time I'm watching this, and you see Ursa like on the hologram and everything, where is Sabine during this? Because she would have to be born, would be my guess. Because this is like a couple days or maybe weeks before the birth of the Empire, which is when Ezra was born, as well as Luke, right? And Sabine is just a couple years older than Ezra. So I'm guessing Sabine's probably about 2 years old during this time. So her mom's off fighting this battle. Is she just at home with Dad on Mandalore, or where's Sabine during this battle?
Yeah, probably.
Oh, interesting question. Maybe on a moon or something. Because I feel like if I was about to attack my own planet, I would. Well, maybe if it's just that city, I don't know. But I would want my daughter to be far away from that battle.
Well, that's the thing, is the siege of Mandalore really is just the siege of that one city. I forget what the city's called, but it's just that one city. It's not the whole of the planet.
That's true. There are a lot of cities and a lot of moons that Mandalorians occupy. The yellow visor on Maul's Mandos, pretty awesome.
Yeah, super cool.
I thought that looked really cool, especially Gar Saxon. Gar Saxon looked awesome.
I really like.
He's working for Maul.
Yeah, Gar Saxon was cool. I also like I forget his name, the leader guy.
Almec.
Yeah. Almec, he had he had like the braids around one side, but it wasn't like the Wookiee braids like Boba Fett has. It was more of like a militaristic outfit.
Much more decorative armor, because he's not really a warrior, you know.
But he did have some cool moves.
Yeah. But I thought it was cool that they put Gar Saxon in there, because I don't know if a lot of people, unless you watch Rebels, would know who that was right away, but I could tell just by looking at him. I was like, oh, that's the dude from Rebels that runs Mandalore for the Imperials. A lot more female Mandos that we see on this, which is awesome. Like a ton of them on both sides.
In Rebels, didn't they kind of establish that women were almost like default leaders? Yeah,
it was kind of like a matriarch system for Mandalore.
Because
and we see that in Mandalorian too with the blacksmith. She's much more of a leader than any of the men are there.
Yeah, because just off the top of my head, you've got like Sabine and I'm blanking on everyone's name. The lady, the main character in this episode, the main Mando lady.
Bo-Katan.
Yeah, Bo-Katan, and then you have like her older sister. Yeah, there's a lot of leader women in all of the shows.
Ursa is the leader of Clan Ren. Yeah, absolutely. Which I think is awesome because, you know, we have a lot of female members of our Mando Mercs Club.
Oh yeah.
And a lot of them have their their custom armor, which is really cool, but now it gives a lot more canon armor that they can do to cosplay as well, which is fun. Let's see. Oh, okay.
This is.
Did you notice that?
Yeah, this is something I noticed. I was gonna say. Yeah,
the Disney-fied violence that you see. So yeah, when Ahsoka starts like attacking people and she jumps out of the LAAT, she's just cutting jetpacks and blasters and pushing people off. There's no actual like contact or violence that happens.
So this is something I always look for in Disney films, especially since they took over Star Wars, which is typically, can have a lot of violence in it. And so I did start noticing that she was just cutting jetpacks and people were like exploding and you don't see anything. But then there was a line where someone said like, "Oh, he's going to kill you." And I was kind of taken aback, like, oh, they actually used the word kill. And I was kind of surprised by that. And then when they're down in the tunnels, there's a bunch of dead troopers, and usually you just have troopers like laying on the ground. But on the scaffolding in one of the shots, you have like a body hanging almost like from a noose, but they're kind of like just stuck on the scaffolding, and I thought that was kind of more than what Disney typically puts in there.
Yeah. It's interesting, like they won't show the lightsaber like cutting somebody, which makes sense, but they'll like show somebody get shot and have no problem with that, or like show a dead body, or like she's cutting their jetpacks and pushing them off. Like they're dying, obviously. Like they're splatting on the ground.
Well,
there.
at one point they splat into the wall, but it's like she cuts a jetpack, or someone does, and they go flying into a wall, and it just poof, like smoke, a big puff of smoke, and you don't see them actually hit the wall.
Yeah. Well, and I thought in this season, actually, there was some violence that was surprising to me for a children's show for Disney, was when Anakin kills, I'm blanking on his name now, the big spider guy.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, we talked about that.
Guy. Yeah, and how he stabs him through the chest or something, or in the back.
Cuts off his robotic arms and then stabs him.
Mm-hmm.
But you kind of have to, I mean, I'm glad that they're doing it, because it definitely... it's a character thing. I feel like you can't just have Anakin letting people go, or like almost killing them in a weird creative way that doesn't show violence.
And you don't want Ahsoka violently removing heads. You know what I mean? So she does a lot of like punching, kicking, and then cutting of the jetpacks.
That was a cool scene as she's like falling, jumping from ship to ship, clearing them out of all the bad guys. It was awesome.
Racing Rex down. And I saw something, I think this was Star Wars Explained, that I heard him say this, and I'm just going to bring it up because I thought it was a cool point, where in the beginning, I think it's in the Clone Wars movie, you see Ahsoka racing, is it Anakin or Rex? I can't remember. Somebody to the top of a tower.
Oh, yeah.
And then here they're racing in a descending order down to the bottom. And it's kind of a fun bookend.
Yep.
So... Star Wars is poetry. It rhymes. I think I heard someone say that once. Let's see. There's a shot in here that I really love. I don't know if anyone else is as obsessed with it as I am, but it's that shot where you see this Mando woman, and she's like peering over the corner of a tunnel, and then she turned around and walks to another tunnel. But as she's walking, the camera pans with her, and you see all these Mando troops that she has with her, and then she goes and like peers on the other end. I just thought that was a sweet way of like showing how many like enemies there are lurking in these tunnels as she gets captured. All right, we assume captured.
Yeah.
But she gets surrounded.
It shows you a couple things that, like, one, the protagonist is unaware of all these forces, and that they're almost outnumbered at this point. And it almost felt like it reminded me of the the MCU, I guess that's Disney as well, but like the Netflix episodes of like Daredevil and stuff, where they have these creative one-take shots almost, where you pan across and you show multiple things without any cuts. It was really cool.
Yeah, I'm glad to see that in this. I mean, we've seen it with a lot of the later seasons, but not only are these creators interested in good storytelling and entertaining children, but they're interested in good filmmaking. I think, Dave Filoni has realized that probably the majority of people watching season 7 are not kids. It's the people that were kids when the show came out, or people that are adults, or have kids. But so they kind of make it to look pretty and to look satisfying and to look good filmmaking techniques. So I think that's really cool because, I mean, you tell me you have a 6-year-old, but does he care about good-looking shots and composure in his cartoons? Probably not.
He watches like We Bare Bears, and it's like the most mind-numbing stuff, and he loves it.
We Bare Bears. I've never heard of that, but it sounds interesting. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, it just ends on that cliffhanger there of Darth Maul.
Yeah, well...
Do you have anything you want to add about Darth Maul?
That was interesting, that like we knew that they were walking into a trap pretty well in advance, because like up in the throne room they're talking about like, oh good, they went down to the tunnels just as our Lord expected or predicted,
right?
And so we know that Maul is down there. We know that they're walking into a trap, and then I don't remember who said it, but someone said like, you brought the wrong Jedi. And then
I think it was Olmec.
Yeah, Olmec said that.
Yeah, to Bo-Katan.
And then when we get down into the tunnels, and Maul walks out, and he's like, "Oh, I was expecting Obi-Wan."
Yeah.
which was interesting.
Which I think is hilarious. Like, Maul is still, and it seems like it's more than it was. Like, because Maul's like, I'm after Kenobi, I'm after Kenobi. And it seems like this has been going on forever because we've already seen Rebels, where his motivation is like, I want Kenobi, I want Kenobi, I want Kenobi. And then we go back a little bit, and he's just like, oh, I was expecting Kenobi. And you're like, man, this guy,
Well,
one motivation in life, which is great. I mean, it makes sense.
if someone cuts you in half, let's see how long it takes you to forget it. Especially when you
well, and that's what I love
purposely
about
fill
Maul.
yourself with rage.
Yeah, his whole character is just about being so fixated on revenge that it just corrupts him and eats him.
Which is interesting that he is so focused on Kenobi, and I feel like there's, maybe this is intentional, maybe it's not, but he's almost like focusing his rage against Palpatine towards Kenobi, because he knows that he can't do anything about Palpatine because he's not strong enough as a Sith, and he's not smart enough to take down Palpatine. So he's like, fine, I'll focus all my anger, which strengthens me, at this one guy that I feel like I can take down.
That I actually haven't thought about it that way. That's an interesting take on it, because if you look at it objectively, it's like, okay, you killed this guy's master, and then in response, he just continued fighting you and then beat you without killing you, supposedly, and then left. Like, you have hatred for somebody who is defending himself, and you just killed his master, when Palpatine is the one who took you from childbirth and turns you into this weapon and is your true enemy. But you're right, he doesn't have the power to take him on, and he fears the dark side, and he's been trained to hate the light side. So he's like, well, Kenobi killed me, he's on the light side, he's going to be the one I'm going to focus my rage on to receive this great power, because I don't have the power to take on Palps.
Yeah, he can't really do anything else about his life. Like, his brother's dead, like everything that he gets, Palpatine always takes it away from him. And but there's nothing he can do. He can't do anything about that.
He really has no purpose.
No.
I mean, which is part of the reason George Lucas killed him at first, is he had no purpose. But he just makes such a dang good villain that, they bring him back time and time again.
It's a little bit like the Joker, in that he's more scary because he doesn't want anything. Thinking about the Joker in all of his iterations, there's versions of the Joker who just like burn mountains of cash, because he doesn't care. He's not about the cash. It's just about that one goal of like chaos. And you could almost say like, if Maul was motivated by anything else, he had the Shadow Collective. He was the ruler of Mandalore. He has the Crimson Dawn. Like, he has things that he could really just sit back on and rule and have a lot of power, but he throws all of that away to get to Kenobi and to feed his anger. It's really interesting.
Exactly. Well, I mean, think of a world where Maul lives, if Kenobi didn't kill him in Rebels, spoiler for Rebels if you haven't seen it, what would his purpose be? I mean, even if he was the king of all crime and he was bigger than the Hutts, I don't think he would feel satisfied.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And he could have been. He was at a point, like, at his height, he could have taken on the Hutts. He could have been the king of crime.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. And I don't remember how he got onto
Malastare?
Malachor? Was it Malachor? No, not Malastare. What? Moraband.
Oh, yeah.
I think it was on Moraband where he meets Ezra. Yep. I don't remember how he got there, but I think it had something to do with looking for Maul, right? Or looking for Kenobi.
Probably, yeah.
Like, he had thrown away, because he's after the Sith holocron. Because wasn't there something like, if you put a Sith holocron and a Jedi holocron together, you could, like, find, or, like, ask one question and, like, receive the answer type of thing. So I think that's what he was doing. He was trying to find location of Kenobi.
That's right. Oh, yeah, because Ezra is the one that cracks it open, and he gets asked the question instead of Maul. That's right. Mm-hmm. I need to rewatch that. It was so good.
Rebels is so good, and I love Rebels. So, well, that's pretty much our thoughts and our opinions on Episode 9 of Season 7 of the Clone Wars. What did you guys think about it? If you're listening, let us know. comment on whatever platform you're listening to this on, or tweet us at BTR Star Wars, or hit us up on Facebook at BTR Star Wars. Preston, do you have anything else you want to add at the end of our episode?
It feels good to be back. It feels good to be talking about Star Wars.
Yeah.
I didn't really take a
It
break
really
from
does.
Star Wars. Like, I still was keeping up with the news and watching everything as it came out. But, it feels good to be finally chatting about it again.
Well, and I feel like I'm kind of getting over this motivational slump that I've been in. It sounds like you've kind of been in something similar. You've got had a lot of work to do as well. But I think we should be back on track to get our weekly episodes out.
Yeah, I would say if you're ever feeling down, for me today, instead of working out of my basement, I worked out of my upstairs bedroom, and where there's a big window, I could see the sun. So get out there, try not to go crazy, staying indoors. That's my thought.
I live in a basement, so I don't have that option. But for the listeners at home, yes, that is good advice. Try to get some sunlight. Try to look outside. Have some fun. Enjoy the quarantine. Listen to lots of Star Wars podcasts. Watch a lot of Star Wars.
Chat with us on Twitter. Honestly, this is like the best time to jump onto this. If you want to start listening to a Star Wars podcast, right now is the best time to start listening to ours. Because honestly, if someone were to hit us up on Twitter, we'll talk about them, and they can have an influence on the podcast.
You can be our number one fan. I actually did see on our analytics, we did have somebody listen to us in Ireland.
Oh, cool.
So that was kind of cool. Yeah. So if you're out there in Ireland, hit us up. Hit us up on Twitter. Talk to us. We can discuss Star Wars. So, well, thanks for listening, everybody. Stay home, stay safe, and may the Force be with you.
Bye.